a second economic crisis for Biden, but a different first response. The president-elect's proposed economic rescue package is larger and more targeted due to country's needs than the stimulus plan he helped steer into law as vice president in 2009. Washington, Joseph R. Biden Jr. inherits an economic crisis while taking over the presidency, as he did when he became vice president a dozen years ago. But this crisis is different, and if we look at the comfort of many liberal economists, so is Mr. Biden's answer. The $1.9 trillion economic bailout that Mr. Biden proposed on Thursday is significantly larger than the stimulus he and President Barack Obama pushed in 2009 and addresses the biggest problems of the economy. It turns into a rapid recovery like a traditional stimulant in a more normal period of recession. Instead, it means reviving economic activity by attacking the COVID-19 pandemic more aggressively through vaccines and testing, and keeping the heavily affected people and businesses afloat until it's done. There are other updates to suit the changing politics of the last decade. The package is full of easy-to-explain provisions such as direct payments to individuals and government subsidies for childcare, and these provisions may become more popular with voters than the tax cuts included in the 2009 incentive, which are often hidden. This is troubling to some economists and budget experts who complain that $1,400 checks are inefficient use of government resources. These complaints do not bother Mr. Biden and his aides. The Great Recession and the boom, coupled with historically low government borrowing costs for more than a decade and fears about the ballooning federal budget deficit in Washington, convinced them that there was something far better than not enough for a recovery. Every aspect of this plan shows that Biden has learned the lesson from 2009, said Jason Furman, a former senior economist for Obama. Be big, be open, expand what people think is possible. Mr. Biden's economic team includes several Obama-era veterans who say they have learned from the past 12 years and from the economic and health struggles of the pandemic. Brian Deese, Mr. Biden's choice to lead the National Economic Council, said this plan reflects an assessment of the current economic moment, and when you do this, you are faced with a plan that is quite different from previous recessions. Obama has taken on several policy roles in the White House. If we want to get people back to work, we must open schools. If we want schools to be open, we need the exam, Mr. Deese said in an interview. If we want to bridge the time the economy is recovering, then we need to provide significant amounts of direct relief. These are different problems than we saw in 2009. Editor's picks: a victory and uncertainty for the professional athlete leading social justice. A farewell to Trump aesthetics. What was Donald Trump's Twitter? These differences are clearly visible in large parts of Mr. Biden's new proposal, which will not be considered stimulating in any traditional sense of the word. Its most important part is the more than $400 billion spent to strengthen the country's defense against coronavirus. These include speeding up vaccine distribution and speeding up testing and contact tracking for infections, partly through a federal job program that will recruit 100,000 people in these areas. New York University's Nobel Prize-winning economist Paul Romer urging lawmakers to significantly increase test spending, said Mr. Biden's call to spend $50 billion on testing efforts would make a big difference to the economy. Such an investment will probably get us to the point where it is true that anyone who wants to be tested over the next 12 months can actually be tested, said. COVID-19 funding also includes more than $100 billion for security measures in schools, with most kindergartens to 8th grade schools, aiming to reopen within 100 days. If this succeeded, it will help potentially millions of parents, most of them women, return to full-time work. The other $1.5 trillion in the package is aimed at helping individuals, governments, and businesses to a lesser extent bear the most damage since the start of the pandemic recession last year. It includes extended and extended benefits for unemployed workers, assistance for evacuated tenants, and assistance for low-income families who are struggling with food. The plan also mandates paid leave for most workers and providing funding, and provides new assistance to people who do not have or have lost health insurance. The Biden team and their allies are confident that if successful, the economy will be ready for a roaring recovery. Other policymakers and forecasters, including Federal Reserve Chief Jerome Powell, predict a rapid recovery once the virus is brought under control. Recovery from the Great Recession was delayed for years because we were unable to act on the scale of the problem, said Heidi Sherholtz, chief economist of the Department of Labor, now at the Liberal Economic Policy Institute. This is a great departure from past mistakes. The Biden plan is obviously not the exact one that many economists will choose, including liberal ones like Furman. The direct checks that proved to be a winning political message in the Georgian runoff election, giving the Democrats control of the Senate, will reach millions of Americans who did not lose their income during the epidemic and will likely save them money. And the price tag with the inclusion of long-struggling provisions, conservatives such as raising the federal minimum wage to $15 per hour, means the package won't get too much Republican support. Lawmakers have already warned that it has spent too much on the $900 billion and $2.2 trillion packages passed in December and March. Some conservative economists say the package spends much more than is needed to fill what economists call the output gap, which is the value of lost performance in the economy due to the recession. They are beginning to warn that spilling too much fuel into the economy poses the risk of runaway inflation, the same argument that many did in 2009, which has proven wrong. A package of this size cannot be recommended, said Michael Strain, an economist at the conservative American Enterprise Institute, fills the output gap several times. Some on the left say the plan still doesn't go far enough. Mark Paul, an economist at New College of Florida, who estimated last month that the economy needed up $4 trillion to fully recover, said Mr. Biden is taking the risk that Congress will refuse further assistance if needed in the fall. Mr. Biden's aides say they have proposed a package to meet the needs of this crisis, learning from the struggles of early vaccination and the fact that policymakers have not been able to fully bridge people and businesses during months of declining economic activity as the pandemic intensifies. They were encouraged to spend as much as they suggested, in part because of low interest rates and historically anemic inflation that has been going on for more than a decade and has led to a change in many economists thinking about the advisability of large deficits. The proposal garnered praise Friday from a Federal Reserve official who urged lawmakers to spend more to help the economy recover from the crisis. It's a big package, but I think it's appropriate, Eric Rosengren, president of Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, said in an interview with CNBC. The economy is currently in a recession. If you make any investment or legal decision, it is advised to consult an expert before making this decision.